Okay, so we think that many things in this debate have not actually been specific to the decline in the power of the nation state. Right? When we hear that people now have more economic opportunities, this has to do with globalization. When we hear about the power of corporations, we obviously agree that they had all the effects that our opening opposition said, but you had corporations in the 19th century, before globalization. The train company in the United States owned a lot of the land, forced a lot of the laws on the United States, made them change the way they count time. Right? We think they had a bunch of power. This is not something that is relevant specifically to the decline in the power of the nation state. Right? What we're going to show in this debate is that when the nation-state's power declines specifically, and specifically in the cases that OG tell you about, where the identity becomes weaker, or I feel that my identity is being encroached, this creates a backlash, and this creates damages that are unique to this debate, not relevant to the idea of globalization in general, to existence of economic bodies, right? So we're going to talk about populism, we're going to talk about racism. First of all, some rebuttal, right? So when they tell us that the nation, they tell us, look, all these points about racism are irrelevant because the nation-state creates the narrative that there's yours and there's mine, and now we just won't have this narrative. Zero analysis on why now you won't have this narrative, right? People have grown up in the nation-state, people have gotten the education of the nation-state, they feel like it's a part of their lives, they don't want to just give it up when this is how they define themselves and their identity, right? When they tell us that we have less wars, we just don't buy that this is true, right? Look, before the First World War, there was tons of trade between the countries in Europe. A lot of trade, like a historic high in the amount of trade that was going on between Europe. This does not prevent the First World War, right? We think that the reason that we see in decline in wars in the last decades is just not this fact. The reason that we say is that, first of all, just the traumas of the world wars. It is the fact that we have much better weapons and we're afraid that someone might use those weapons against us. And it is the fact that in general we have better technology and we're able to extract better resources, meaning there's less reason to go to war because the land itself is less important than it used to be in the past. We think this is the reason you see a decline in war. We think that still you can see trading partners doing proxy wars, still you can see different countries fighting against each other. We just don't believe their analysis that this is the real reason why we see a decline in wars, and it is not related to the decline in the power of the nation state, right? Then they tell us, look, globalization is weakening boundaries, meaning we get meaning that people can move freely and then there are no sweatshops. Look, we're debating, so first of all, we're debating this in reality, right? The reality is that we have not cancelled all the nation states. There are still nation states and there are still boundaries and there are still borders, right? We think that all these reasons, all these things still exist, nothing really changed. We think that, and again, we think that some flow of people is probably relevant to globalization, not to the decline of the nation state in specific, right? So let's talk about what this does change, right? Look. So what does opening opposition already comes and tells you, look, people are looking for other alternative venues for their identities, and the result they become more connected to the religion, more racist, and more anti-other groups, right? And then come governments and tell you reasonably, look, but there is always some type of racism, there is always some type of reliance on group. We don't know why this is specific, but we want to show you what happens specifically when the power of the nation state gets weaker, right? What happens, right? So we think that the thing is that people have a deep connection to the feeling that they are part of the nation state, and this is something that is ingrained in them, right? We think from a very young age you go to school, and maybe in your school they sing the anthem, in your school they teach you about the history of your specific nation, and everybody talks about that specific nation. You connect it to your language and to the stories that you learn in literature class and all of that, right? We think that all the symbols that you see around you are symbols, the flag of your nation and the currency of your nation with the symbols of the important people from your nation, right? You have ceremonies that you go throughout your life. You have important events in your life where you come and, register in the state, right? We think that most of the news you get is from the point of view of the state because you're taking usually the local media, right? So we think that this is very ingrained both in how I perceive myself and just how I perceive the world around me. I see it through the lens of the nation state, through the lens of my people, and this is how I define my identity and define who I am, right? Now we think that when the nation state is declining, when I feel that the state has less power, when I feel that there are more and more people who maybe define themselves otherwise, as government tells me, or the nation state doesn't have as much economic power as it did before, like we hear, what does this mean? It means that people are very afraid, right? It means that people feel like this is not an encroachment, like this is not an encroachment in general on the nation state. They feel this is encroachment on themselves, on their identities, and on who they are, right? They feel that this is why suddenly people in Britain care about regulation, right? Nobody cares about regulation, but people in Britain started caring about except for Michael maybe, but people in the Britain started caring about regulation because they feel this is taking away their identity, right? They feel that their ability to decide on their nation is important to them, and this is being taken away from them, deprived from them. This is what important to them, this is what scares them, right? We think that this is what causes the nation state to become much more extreme. This is what causes the nation state to try and oppress people who are different and to try to come back to the identity that it feels it's losing. It feels like this is slipping out of its grasp, and it needs to, and it must maintain it some way. Before we talk about how exactly this happens, opening, yeah.
This extremism is not very likely if you have a competition of different ideas and people moving around that you cannot fight. And we say that if you don't, however, relate to the state narrative, at least you have an opting out to a new community that you form.
Sure, look, but we're in the real world. Most people don't have the actual ability to immigrate somewhere else and get citizenship, right? We think even within the European Union, which is like the best example where you can move and still a minority of the world, it is becoming harder and harder to move somewhere else and actually make your life somewhere else. We think most people still live within the nation state. This is still the relevant context, and yet they are feeling that it is slipping away from them and they don't know what to do, right? We think this is where you get things like Poland and Hungary, right, which try to create an identity and make sure they maintain their identity, although they feel they are losing it, right? This is where you have more oppression of minorities, because you feel those minorities might undermine the thing that you feel you are losing and you must fight for now, right? This is when you want to say, I won't accept any of the Western ideas. I don't accept homosexuality any longer. I don't accept the ideals of the court that they want us to have because I feel like these things mean losing who I am. These things mean losing my identity, right? We think that also this means, right, all the good things that OJ tells you, which are not relevant to the nation state, they're relevant to globalization, become much less likely when people are afraid, right? Because this is when states want to become enclosed. This is when states feel like globalization is causing them to lose who they are, and as a result, maybe they don't want to have any part of it any longer. They want to pull out of trade agreements. They want to pull out of those international organizations, right? We think that the backlash to losing the power of the nation state is what's causing oppression, is what's causing a harm to globalization and the harm to people in their personal lives, and as a result, this is the harm that is specific to this debate, and we oppose it.